Yo, what is Crackalackin' Ridge Runner Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Ridge Runners Live. Tonight we are joined by a very special guest, the recent winner of the Canal Corridor 100 mile endurance run that took place this past weekend. He finished in 13 hours, 44 minutes, coming to us all the way from DC. Paul Jacobs, how are you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Feeling good, and yeah, glad to have finished it. Now I can not run for a while.
That's always a good part about finishing a 100 mile. You don't have to have the pressure of kind of keeping going with the training and whatnot. But we're so excited to kind of dive into this race with you. For those of you that don't know, my name is Wesley Harton, and joining me tonight for the very first time is a new man, a man who finished his first 100-mile race at the Canal Corridor 100 miler, JD3 John Dolivaki III. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Like Paul, I'm also not running for a little while as I recover from finishing the first 100 finally, which is nice. But I'm excited to hear about Paul's event and how he actually finished 50% in the same 50% of time that it took me to finish. So that's a fun little fact. It's pretty much like spot on, almost down to the minute right there. But let's jump into our favorite part we do here pre-show, drinks. Paul, what are you drinking over there?
I have the Truth from Flying Dog Brewery. It's a tasty one, hoppy.
Awesome. Hoppy. Yeah, it's a pretty good one. Wesley, what do you got?
Actually, I haven't even looked yet. It's an Island Hop IPA from the Wasatch Brewing Company. My first time trying it tonight, so I'll give you guys a rating after the show. John, what about you?
I am drinking a New Belgium Voodoo Ranger IPA. It's pretty good. I'm enjoying that one. Got a whole pack of those from the fridge, so that's what I got.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into things. As always, you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of the social media platforms. If you're on Strava, join our Strava club over there as well. Paul, before we dive too deep into things, I really want to know, when was the first time you heard about the Canal Corridor 100? Why'd you sign up for it? What was your training like when you first heard about the race? And kind of take us back to just that first moment where you're like, oh, Canal Corridor 100, that's the race I'm going to do this summer.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Wesley. So, I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on it, but frankly, what I did was I took the Western States qualifiers for 2021, or at least run in 2021, and I crossed out all the ones that were canceled because of COVID. Crossed out all the ones that were too far away. I crossed out the ones that were full, and I was left with like three, and one of them was Mohican, which we'll talk about, I guess, a little bit later. And one of them was Canal Corridor. And they were both in Ohio. They just happened to be, it's a couple hours drive from DC. And yeah, so, I got to say, though, even after Mohican and now after Canal Corridor, going out to Ohio is a real pleasure. It's you guys have a great community out there. The Midwest has this like reputation in the U.S. for being a bunch of nice folks, and I think it just like doubles down with the ultra running community. So I was really stoked to join Canal Corridor, and you were asking about training. I mean, really, like I kind of started training a little bit late, so some summer vacations got in the way, but yeah, I started putting in the mileage in like mid-August and was able to kind of peak back up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Ohio people are kind of mad at you right now. You're coming in to Ohio. You don't know too much about the scene, but hey, we're just going to go to Mohican, take second place there, go to Canal, win that race in the same calendar year. It's incredible to see, and we're super pumped that you picked those two races this year. I kind of want to know now, what did leading up to this race look like to you? Obviously, you said the training was a little delayed, but did you focus more on speed workout compared to Mohican, where you maybe focus a little more on vert and trail specific work? What did that look like for you at a race like Canal Corridor 100?
Yeah, no. So, well, first of all, I promise next year I'll pick a different state if that makes it better.
We
But
appreciate that.
but yeah, like West Virginia, or I don't know, whatever, but something close. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, for Canal Corridor, I definitely, I've always been a guy. I came into like this whole scene from the marathoning side of things. So, I try not to ignore speed work, but then again, volume has its place. And I feel like, training is like this interesting balance, right, between the two, where you just got to like see, like, what am I juggling today? or this week or this month or this training cycle. And for Canal Corridor, I definitely turned on the speed work. And I definitely was like at least once a week. I never made it twice a week, but I incorporated into some of my longer runs a little bit of speed. You know, it's not something I have done in the past. Like definitely for Mohican, I was like definitely all about volume, just like build it up to get there. Hang out on trails as long as I could. So it was definitely a very different training cycle, even though obviously 2 runs in the same year.
You've done some similar races, maybe not the 100-mile distance, but like JFK, for example, it can be kind of similar to Canal once you get off the Appalachian Trail section there. Did you use any experience going into this that kind of excite you, like, oh, at least I have this race to look back on that I had success at to go into this one, or was it more of like, hey, I want to try something totally new and to see what this whole speed 100-miler thing is all about?
Well, I gotta say, it's a great question too. I think JFK is like, it's one of my, everybody has like their, the race they carry around is the thing they can't really like nail. JFK is that race for me, man. I mean, it's a great race, but I never really nailed it. I never have. So yeah, but I had that, but it actually, it started to create this anxiety because JFK is one of those races where I feel like I should have been good at, I feel like I should, I'm come from like a road marathoning background. I feel, the mountains I love, but, and I can run trail, but I really feel like I kind of belong on flatter surfaces in some ways. And so I was a little scared because I'm like, wait, I've never really nailed JFK. So why would I think I would nail something twice as long? So I was talking to Olivier LeBlanc, who you guys might know, who's run Canal Corridor a couple times. And, he's just mastered, pacing on long and flat stuff. And I was talking to him before the race, just kind of trying to pick his brain. Like, how do you figure out what's your pace for 100 miles? Is like if you've never done it before. Because even if you run mountain ultras are so different. You can get a sense of effort, and the mountain is your regulator. The mountain is just going to slap you in the face when you go too fast. The mountain is going to slow you down. But on something as flat as Canal Corridor 100, there is no regulator. There is no governor to like slap you in the face. It's just going to be the miles. Like, so if you get to 50 and you went out too fast, that's going to slap you in the face, and you don't want that, So it was a really interesting like mental experience to try to like dial in where is that pacing.
And so did you come up with an idea like where you wanted to go pacing wise for that race, or did you where you just kind of went into it a little bit like, oh, we'll figure it out, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I had a number, but like all things, it's like Mike Tyson once said, it's like everybody has a plan till you get punched in the mouth, and I went into it with this idea of like, oh, if I start at 8:15 pace, I know I'll feel really casual and really relaxed, and I don't know what that works out to for like the 100 miles, but I just kind of knew from running that like 8:15 will feel really relaxed to me. It ended up being faster in the first half, at least in that, which I knew was dangerous. I was like, wait, it felt relaxed to me. So I thought I was in a good place, but then again, I was like, wait, I'm 15 seconds faster than what I said I was going to do. So you never want to look at your watch and go, wait, I'm way ahead of where I should be. It's always a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So going into race morning, you lined up there in the front, probably, I'm assuming, because you're one of the fast men. Did you guys just take off like really fast, or was that pace like you stick to it from the beginning, or you kind of hanging around the front, or did people get away from you in the front and you caught up to them later?
Yeah. Oh man, I should be better at names, but there was one guy who was ahead of me at the beginning, and he definitely kind of like, he was off the bat fast, and he was, knocking down 7:30s. You could almost sense that was his goal, because it was like, he was on the dot 7:30s, and I got pulled with him for a little, like 2 miles, maybe 3. And I very quickly said to myself, this is way outside of where I wanted to be. I guess, I've learned a lot of things through failure, and, from a couple times following somebody that's, just got a faster idea than I do, just like, no, that's not what I'm doing today. So I slowed down pretty quickly by mile 3, maybe by 4 at the latest. I was back at my 8-minute pace. But yeah, it's tempting. You got all that adrenaline on race day, right? I'm sure, I don't know if you felt the same, John, right? Your first 100, you're just like, you're amped, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
It's hard to pull back.
Yeah. So like, I know like Burning River, the first time I tried it, I definitely went out, just kept running like The second time, I think I did burning over, same kind of concept. I went out a little fast. I think I got a text from Nick Voss that told me to slow it down. Um, and then for this one, I was like 5 and 5 was kind of my strategy. I ran 5, walked 5, and I did that because I felt efficient, like at 10:30, 11 pace. That's when I felt like it was natural, like low effort. So I just ran that and then walked, and then so like half mile in, I was walking, and everyone was passing me. But it's definitely tempting because you're just sitting there like, I feel so good right now.
That's great, man. That shows real restraint. I mean, there's so many people that would be tempted or have the social pressure of like, right? Like there's always that pressure, like, oh, I got to keep up with everybody else. But that's good that
It's
you're
just,
able to do that.
yeah, I tried to zone out as much as possible.
So for
Yeah.
you, Paul, kind of going off that, you pretty disciplined with your pacing strategy early on, and this isn't the first time that you've been this disciplined with the pacing plan. I think before Canal, you mentioned to me that Grindstone 2019. There are a bunch of people who are just going out crazy fast, and you're like, okay, these people are not going to be able to keep this pace up at this race, and you eventually went on to win that race as well in 2019. Did you just kind of rely on that confidence that you had there at that race to kind of pull that, or was that something that like you kind of still have to work at, like and just kind of trust that process? Because I feel like every single time, no matter how many times you do that at a race, there's still that the little voice in the back of your mind that's like, I just want to go. But what was that like for you?
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. I've spent I've had so many failures. Like I love that you're bringing up my successes. Thank you. But I could name, like, I could just double down on the number of failures I've had where, like I went out super fast, or I went out in a way that I didn't think was fast. If you asked me at the time, are you running fast? I'd say no, it's fine. And I'm huffing and puffing up every climb. So the short answer is you never really know until you're there. But then again, I think I have had enough experiences of failure. I mean, frankly, that's where you learn. You don't learn a lot from a successful race. You learn a lot from a failed race, and I've had plenty of those, man. Where like the last whatever 20 miles of 100K was just a slog because I went out too fast. Um, but yeah, so in the back of my mind are those failures, and I go, you just don't want that, man. You just don't. Um,
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice to always remind people, and especially myself. I got a 100 miler coming up here in 2 weeks now, and it's going to be like, hey, we can't race the first 50. It's not about the first 50. It's not about the
yeah,
first 25, and I think that's I think a lot of people need to remember when tackling a distance like the 100-mile distance. Let's do a full deep dive on the Canal Corridor 100 now. You kind of started off talking about the early miles of the race. Take us through your full recap, kind of where you want to start things off, and just kind of tell us your story of the race.
yeah, man, sure. No, I'd be happy to. Race day, it always begins the night before when you can't sleep, or at least for me, and I just sit there tossing and turning and not sleeping and worried about, just about everything. I was in this hotel room that was like god awful. I don't know why I chose it. It smelled like smoke. It was a non-smoking room that was like, I was literally getting a contact high from hanging out in there. And so, race day morning, it was a fitful sleep, but I got some sleep. It was raining buckets when I opened up the curtains of this hotel room, and I'm like, oh man, this day is gonna suck. But of course, like as I packed the car and get things going, driving over the race, the rain stopped, and it was like a blessing, right, man? It's just like, whoa, that was perfect. So it ended up being cool at the start, which always feels good. I ran into a couple of people I knew. I ran into a bunch of people I didn't know, and again, back to like Ohio being just a place that it's like that's where communities are made. Just like some really nice folk that I got to talk to at race morning. Helps to calm the nerves. I don't know if you guys feel that way. A couple, conversing with your fellow ultra runner brethren. But yeah, and then the race went off without a hitch. Nothing really to speak of. It's like unlike a trail race, I didn't have to worry about tripping and falling, which I always do. I got really cut up knees to prove it, but I didn't have that experience on Canal Corridor. Yeah, and so I ended up in the first couple of miles with Jeremy Pope, who ended up coming in second. He's a great dude. It was really nice to share some miles with him, and also gentleman Israel, right? I forget his last name, but these guys were really cool and introduced me to the ultra scene in Ohio. We were talking about that scene a bunch, races they'd run. Super cool guys. And we had like this really cool, little triumvirate going. We had the same, we just like really clicked in this like, high sevens, low eights pace that, I mean, we were together for at least 20 miles, I'd say. I mean, we met up by mile 8 or 9 and we were together. I was with Jeremy to like 40, I'd say. So we were together for like 30 miles. It was a great day to be out there. It was a little humid. Thankfully there was clouds coming in and I mean, I didn't like when they left, but the clouds are coming in every time the sun bore down on you, which like, I mean, I've never had that happen before. It's always either a sunny day and you just get scorched or, you end up with like rain or at least clouds. This was like, you started to feel really hot and then suddenly there'd be clouds coming in to give you some respite from the heat. And I don't normally go shirtless, but I gotta say it's like my new thing, I think, because when you can catch that breeze, it just totally changes things for me, at least. It's a little gender biased. I think we should wear sports bras. All men should wear sports bras when they're running, just to keep shit equal. Excuse me, sorry about that, but yeah, keep things equal. But yeah, man, it was a great day to be shirtless out there catching a breeze and just riding a wave. It was a good day.
Yeah, that sounds like it was a good day. For you though, this looks like you were moving so quick that the sun was kind of blocking it. But by the time I got out to the sunny areas, it was pretty sunny. I got some sunburn out there, casual. But
yeah,
nonetheless, wasn't that bad. We had our first question in the chat from Dave Clay 24, Dave Cottrell. I believe he also finished his first 100, right, Wesley? That's his first 100 as well. And he asked, so what did you think of the course, and did the hills on the road section help by changing up the mostly flat course?
Oh, I totally agree with that. I mean, if it weren't for time, right? Like where maybe with the Canal Corridor, like some folks are a little bit like, oh man, I want to grab that time because it's so flat. I mean, I would just say keep putting that road section every 5 miles or maybe even 3 miles, just where you could, climb 100. I mean, it was only 120 feet or something like that whole, I think I might have my numbers off, but the gross elevation to get up to that road is like 120 feet or something. You could do that every mile for me. That'd be great, just to like change up, as the guy was saying in the chat, just to change up your muscle groups. You know what I mean? So like use something different. I don't know. Did you feel that, John, at all?
I felt fine on those hills because I spent a week out at elevation camp with Wesley about 2 weeks ago, and I think we did like 18,000 feet that week, which was nuts for me. I've never done that before, and my climbing legs were just like, nah, this isn't a problem at all. I was running up the uphills at the end of the race.
He was running every uphill, walking every downhill. I've never seen anything like that.
That's what happened, man.
You've got the mirror image of the ultra runner playbook or whatever.
Hey, it worked for me. I finished.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice. I like those kind of back roads like that sometimes where they're like just open and it'll change the scenery. Especially, did you see the guy in the forklift like just zipping across the road?
No, I missed that.
Oh, you missed him. Oh, he was like hauling across the road with like whatever. He was just going back and forth. Like he would like stop at the road and like almost hit a couple runners one time. Like zip. Because I'm sure he's not used to runners just kind of, casually going on that street.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm glad I missed
that. Let's see here. What else we got in the chat? Cam Wrench says the challenge accepted for the sports bras. So he's going to see about that. And Brian Gray says, welcome to Ohio. Any major surprises or adjustments, especially in the last 50?
Yeah. So I don't know. I had this weird idea. So this is a bit of a surprise, I guess. But like, I had this weird idea that, it was a double out and back for, I guess some folks might not realize, right? So it's 35 miles out, 35 miles back, and then 15 out, 15 back. And if I do my math right, that gets you to 100. And so I had this crazy idea that I wanted to be fresh at that last 15 miles. Not fresh, of course. It's mile 85. Nobody's fresh. But I was like, how fast could I run a mile at mile 85? I was just like, I'm just going to try it. And it's like the stupidest thing you could think, right? It's like, why would you do that? but I decided to run as hard as I could for like a mile. I didn't really truly sprint or anything, but so that was just I was just kind of testing myself, seeing like what would happen. And I really destroyed myself to the point where I really messed up like the next 3 or 4 miles as a result of that mile. So I'm never doing that again. That was a lesson learned. I had this idea that possibly it could put you in a new frame, right? Like, like you had your frame, John, right? Where you're like, I'm going to run 5, walk 5. My frame was like, all right, just try to keep 8-minute miles or 8:15 or whatever for as long as possible. But I was like, if I change the frame, if I just change the cadence and just see what happens, maybe that'll evolve into the last 15 miles just being super fast. It turns out that's not true, so I wouldn't try that at home. But
you were in first place at this point, right?
At that point, yeah.
So I love that you're experimenting in first place. Most people like lock it in, just try to roll it in.
I think it's the best time to, right? I don't know.
Love that. I'm going to take that advice. If I'm ever in first place, I'm going to experiment.
Try something new.
Just throw it all out there.
In theory, and I'm going to talk a little theory here, Cam Rice is going to love this because he's a big theory guy, but, I think that, when they say you get to the top of a hill, you should try to crest it strong to kind of keep the leg turnover going so you can kind of go down quicker. And so, in theory, your idea should have worked entirely correct. Just pick up the pace, keep it going, and just hold it the last 15 miles. I don't know why it didn't work. It must have been an outlier or something like that.
I just have to keep trying it, we'll see.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. We'd love to see it. So kind of continuing on with the race and kind of the story there, were there any incredibly dark patches of the race for you where you kind of had to battle through something? And then if so, how did you come out of that moment?
Yeah, man, I don't know if other folks have this, but I mean, there's never been a race I've run, over a 50K where I haven't considered why I run. I'm like, why the heck do I do this sport? I'm like, there's ping pong. Ping pong doesn't hurt this much, It's like ping pong sounds great right now. I'm like, I don't even know how you play it, but it's got to be easier than this crap. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have those moments. They usually occur about 2/3 of the way through, where your legs are like sausage meat, and so I did actually have a moment or several moments during this race that I've never had before. And it actually had occurred right after one of those sort of crises, if you will. And what I said to myself was, how much can I pay attention to nature around me? And and if you guys haven't been on this towpath, for those that are maybe outside of the area, I mean, it really is quite pleasant. I mean, sometimes you're in an urban environment, but there's a lot of birds, there's a lot of trees, there's the sound of, babbling brooks. And I actually I always try to notice that stuff, especially in trail runs. It's like why we're out there. It's like to enjoy what you're, the natural surroundings of this earth. But in this case, something even deeper happened to me that I've never experienced before in a race, where I was sort of going through this real pain cave, so to speak. Like, what the heck am I doing? It's hot out, whatever. And I said, I'm just going to try to focus on nature around me. I'm going to try to zen out into this space. And, I just kept telling myself to do that. And I got to and I said, what if I just try to ignore the next 10 miles? And I was at mile 59. And I was like, I'm just going to ignore the next 10 or 11 miles. I'm just going to just pretend they don't exist and just listen. And it actually really worked for me. I wouldn't say every moment of those next 11 were, peaceful and joyful, but it was a sense of connection. I was listening to birds, just kind of viewing trees blowing in the wind, and having a really peaceful 11 miles, even though I was, just minutes before kind of in a bad place.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I think it's cool because you're kind of distracting yourself almost in a way, that you're kind of allowing yourself to just kind of mechanically keep moving with your stride and whatnot, but you keep your mind, which is really the only thing that's going to make you stop or slow down. Unless you physically have an injury, the mind is the reason you're going to stop. So to be able to distract it or keep it entertained somehow, looks like it worked pretty well for you to keep going through that little low spot. So
yeah, and I think it may have helped that it was this type of race where it's so flat and so long, because if you try that in another setting where the terrain varies a lot, or there's a lot of rocks and roots, you might end up tripping because you're getting distracted, or if there's a lot of uphill and downhill, you might end up pushing too hard on the up or doing something stupid on the down. But if you're sort of locked into a pace, like I was trying to be, it's you don't need to think. Like, what is there to think about? I don't have no routes to jump over. I have no pace adjustment to make on this uphill because the uphills don't exist. And so really all I got to do is just like continue forward. And so in that sense, like, I feel like it was easier to let my mind just go do something else as opposed to like be in the race, where sometimes, you know, like I'm not, like, for instance, I'm not a naturally gifted climber, like in like, you know, steep climbs. Like, I stink at that stuff. So what I do is I sort of like, I'm always strategizing, like, how do I get around that? Like, I'm going to run fast on the ridge line or whatever. You know, I'm constantly, but like in this race, it's like, nah, I picked my pace. I have my pace. You know, it's like the die is cast. I just got to keep going, you know?
Yeah, about the most dangerous thing you got out there was wet bridges. The
Yeah,
wet wood
yeah.
in the morning. That's about it. It's the only thing you're going to fall on.
Or the people living underneath them, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're kind of going off that, you know, one of the cool parts about an out and back course is you get to see people kind of going out and back, and especially in a double out and back course, you're gonna get that twice. So did you use that as motivation, or did that help you at any point throughout the race, or during the mindfulness section, where you like, if someone said, "Hey, good job," you're like, "Hey, I'm listening to the birds right now. Like, can we take a minute here and just enjoy this?"
Well, that's good, man. I like that. No, I mean, well, the 59 to 70 was on that section where everybody that I had, it was sort of like, so I'm coming back from mile 35. I had already passed the entire field, so to speak, right? So like we had already passed one another. So thankfully I didn't have to worry about them disturbing my moment of Zen or whatever. But yeah, you know, I mean, the turnarounds are cool because you know, I'm out there for the community, man. I'm out there to, like, you know, see faces and kind of like get involved in that. And, you know, you know, these turnarounds are like, these don't happen in every race. So you can really just kind of like wave hi, what's up? How you doing? Great job. You know, man, I think my throat was like dry because I said that to everybody. I was like, I'm not going to miss a single person except for like the one dude who's like, you know, in the pain cave with his headphones on, who's like not talking to anyone. I'm like, all right, I'll leave you alone. No, but that was really cool. It was fun to see people out there, and like, you know, and it's cool to like also, you kind of witness like how people attack things, right? Like some people are just like super powerful hikers and walkers. You know, you have people with different strides. It's fun to just notice like how are people attacking this challenge.
Yeah, see, like when you passed me going the other direction, you were like in the zone, it looked like, and you just like cruising along. And then I was counting, you know, people back, and then we got to first female at the time. I don't remember who was in first place at that time, but I think she was in the fourth place with one other guy running, and they were
That
just
sounds
like
right.
chatting and having a blast, like it was a casual stroll. And I'm like, man, I hope I feel that good coming back. But yeah,
Well, what did they do at the turnaround?
right. It's just cool to see, like you said, to see everybody and to see the leaders too coming back, because you don't always get to see the leaders except for the start. Because by the time, you know, I get to the finish, everyone's gone. So it's always
Yeah.
cool to see them coming through the race. I thought it was exciting.
Yeah. I mean, and then inevitably, you know, from a strategic standpoint, like everybody's counting miles, at least in the front. Like, you know, everybody's sort of like, how long did it take for me to get back to where that person was, type of thing, which,
Yeah.
you know, you try not to obsess about, but it's there. It's information. You got to use the information. You know,
You,
there's so many courses where you don't get that, right?
You'd be absolutely dumb not to use that. And there's so much strategy, especially in a race like this one, where it is that double out and back course with a billion aid stations at this race. Like, I mean, that's no exaggeration. There's more aid stations than there are miles to run in this 100 miler, and that's a
Yeah.
really cool feature of it. Did you use that? Like, how did you manage to, like, you know, be effective, be efficient through your aid stations? Were there ones you wanted to stop at quicker? And what was just your nutrition and fueling strategy throughout the day?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, there's an aid station every 30 feet. It's annoying. You're like, just shut up. I don't need anything. No, it's great. It's great. The volunteers are awesome. So, I mean, you know, I guess like everybody, it's like, I'm trying to eat as much as I can. You know, I kind of blessed in that you know, my stomach can take just about anything I throw at it. Like I can really eat anything. So that's good stuff. But, you know, but I am really conscious about aid station speed. I mean, like, it's just, especially in something like this where I was kind of shooting for a time. You know, I mean, I was, you know, 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there, pretty, you know, not just pretty soon, but after two of those, you're talking a minute. You know, so like that adds up, you know, if you stop 10 times, right? You know, I gotta say though, just praise be to the people working those aid stations. Because I mean, by the end, I was spending a couple minutes at each one, and I just wasn't. I had some pretty low points, like after 70, there was, several low points, and getting to the aid station, just being like, I'm going to give myself an extra minute or two here to really just like find whatever I need, like whatever that is. It all, I mean, I don't know. I'm an omnivore. I'm a glutton. I'll eat anything. So I was just pounding everything, pickle juice, PB&J sandwiches, chips. It's like, it all goes in the tank. And there's no, and I don't know about you, John or Wesley, but like, there's no rhyme or reason. It's like, oh, 3 miles ago, you offered me a PB&J and I scoffed at you for daring to offer me such a thing. And now I'm like, where's your PB&J? Because that's the only thing. I can't explain what my stomach's doing, but yeah, it just seems like, you got to put something in it, salt tabs, whatever it is,
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. You start off and you stick to your nutrition, and then near the end, you're just like grabbing whatever's possible. Like we were eating pizza at the end, and the meatballs that were at the 70-mile mark were great. So those were awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Another chat question says, he said Eric Anderson wants to know a little more about your training. He says it's unique to see someone excel at both mountain races and at faster flat races. He said he was late, so may have missed some of it, but I don't think we've touched on the specifics between the two, I guess.
Yeah, no, thanks. No, it surprised me that, I guess it surprised me it took so long to do a race like Canal Corridor, because again, I kind of came at this from like a marathoning background, or the sport of ultra running, I came at from a marathoning background where typically it's a lot flatter, right? So I always knew I kind of enjoyed the flat stuff. I'm always faster on the downs. I stink at going uphill, man. I really do. I love being out in the mountains, but man, I will lose time on just about anybody climbing an uphill. And sometimes I feel like that might be an advantage, where it's like, you're saving your strength, saving your energy, and but it's just an excuse because I suck. No, but and in terms of training, I mean, it's a great question. Like, so for Canal Corridor, I just stayed on the flats. There's the C&O Canal, the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, runs along Washington, D.C., from Washington, D.C. all the way up to Cumberland, Maryland. And it's like an exact replica of the towpath you guys have out in Akron. So I stayed on that a bunch for my long runs. And I dropped most of my elevation stuff that I do. But yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like all the cool kids were running in the mountains. So I was like, I got to run the mountains. And then like, it took me 10 years to realize, I'm like, maybe I should do something else. So we'll see. I don't know what's in the future. I have no idea. I'm just kind of like going to play it by ear, but it is fun to try both. I think that's what I love about this sport is everyone just says like, oh, you just run a long time. It's like, there's infinite ways to keep it fresh if you're looking for things to keep it fresh, not to go on a tangent, but I started becoming a bird watcher like 2 years ago. It sounds like totally random, but it's like I was spending like, I don't know, 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, just in the local trails. And I'm like, I keep seeing all these birds and I don't know their names. I'm like, why wouldn't you learn all their names? Like, why wouldn't you figure it out? So it's like, that's another avenue for the sport to become new and interesting, other than just like elevation and, mountain versus flat. Like, there's all these different ways to think about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Did you keep track of the number of different birds you saw on Canal?
I haven't kept track of the number. I saw one that I've never identified before, and I still haven't looked it up because life is life, and I don't have. But I will look it up. I have like a really good mental image of what it is. But
nice.
Yeah.
So coming back on that, the last little 15 miles there, you said you ran that one really hard, which burned you out for about 3 or 4 miles. Sounded like you picked it back up after that. Coming in towards the finish, then, what was that moment like when you got there and you crossed that finish? And at what point did you know that you kind of had it in the bag as being first place?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't like talking too much about it. It's just like, because it's not why I do this. But I mean, the honest truth is that like at the turnaround, as Wesley was communicating as well, right? It's like you can just count, and so I was like, okay, well, from the mile 85 turnaround, I just was like, all right, I know what the odometer reads at 85. and I can count how long that takes me to get to the second place. You multiply that by 2, and then you know how far ahead you are. And by then, I was ahead enough that I was like, as long as nothing really stupid happens, like running a really fast mile, I'll be fine. And then I ran a really fast mile, which was stupid. No, but so I kind of knew a little bit earlier than that, like then coming into the finish line, right? I kind of had an idea that I was like enough minutes ahead that I'd be safe if I didn't do stupid things. But then again, you never know. Like this sport is so capricious, right? Like you could start vomiting randomly at like mile 92, and then you're walking for 4 miles. And I was like, if something like that happens, I am not coming in first place. Like that is, so I definitely wasn't taking it for granted, but I was like, just make good decisions, except for this 1 mile that I'm gonna run fast.
Love it. Got some more comments from the chat here. We got Michael Patton says, awesome race on Saturday. I finished a handful of hours behind you and enjoyed the energy of cheering runners on ahead and behind us as we ran. Provided energy during the lows and highs for him. Totally agree with that. And then Dave Clay 24 says, did you have a crew with you? And if so, what was the most beneficial thing that they did for you?
No crew. My wife and kids usually crew me. I love them dearly. This didn't work out school-wise and other stuff. They're the best crew I could ever have. But yeah, I went solo, no pacer, no crew this time around.
Nice. Yeah, let's see what you got.
Yeah, so kind of transitioning now out of Canal, and I kind of want to talk about Mohican. Obviously, you picked that one too a little bit. You decided to run that race. You took second place at that race. There's a lot of Ohio Original Nation members out there that probably saw you at Mohican. I know I snubbed you on the prediction video. I heard about it for years and years. And to be fair, to this day, Mohican 100 is not on Ultra Signup. So I just missed, Paul Jacobs there. And that's on me. It'll never happen again. But no, I'm excited to kind of know, like, what was that race like for you? Kind of talk about that one. Obviously, a totally different race than Canal Corridor. Did you ever share any miles with Arling Glick, or was he just too far gone? Kind of like, what was that whole day like for you?
That guy has rocket boosters, man. It's awesome. I know, I totally respect him so much. But I only got to meet him afterwards because he took off at the start and I never saw him again. So that was brilliant. Mohican was a really great experience. I mean, again, it was my first Ohio Ultra. And almost in the same way of like, thinking about Canal Corridor, I was like, I wanted to try something new, and I'd never done a looped course. I've done point to point, I've done like big loops of, in the Massanutten Mountains in Virginia is where I really usually do things. And this Mohican, came up, and I was like, wow, 4 loops, that could be kind of fun. Like, right, the strategy of like getting, because it was my first loop on Mohican was going to be my first knowledge of the course. But then it's like kind of cool because you like get to use that knowledge really quickly. So the first loop, I was definitely like, pay attention. Like if you don't get lost in the first loop, you're not guaranteed, but pretty likely not to get lost at all. So that's kind of a nice benefit of that looped course. And then like you understand the elevation profile, what's the hard stuff. You get to know that pretty quickly, after the first loop. So I was definitely like, just trying to like lock in like a sort of Rain Man, like, memory zen where I'm like, okay, remember everything about this. And, another cool thing about your Ohio scene, man, is I immediately was in this like awesome pack of 3 or 4 guys. And I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's from Columbus, but he had run Mohican several times, both the 50 and the 100. And he was like this amazing tour guide. He was like, oh yeah, so this part of the forest was planted by the Civilian Conservation Corps in like the 1930s. And I'm just sitting there like soaking it up. I'm like, dude, this is great. Can you just do this for 16, 18 hours? Like that would be awesome. So yeah, that was like a real pleasure to just meet I think the guy's name, oh man, he came in like 5th. Anyways, he's awesome, whatever his name is. And so that race, I mean, 4 loops, every loop was actually fine except for loop 3. Loop 3, the humidity, I don't know if you guys were there that day or remember it, but it was June 18th, I think. And man, that humidity and heat in Ohio in June, it killed me in loop 3. I think I hit that 3rd loop maybe at something like noon or 1 p.m. And so it was just like the heat of the day was like spread throughout that third loop. And I tanked, pace wise and morale wise. It's just like really sufferfest. And again, back to Arlen Glick, that dude did not. So like, of course, I compared some splits afterwards. I mean, the man is superhuman because it's like, fine, he's faster than me. That's fine. A lot of people are faster than me, but it's like if you compare the splits, it's like for some reason we started that third loop about the same time. And the man kept putting time on me on the third loop. I'm like, dude, you're supposed to have some vulnerability. Even Superman had his kryptonite. Like, you have to have some weakness, but the guy doesn't. It's awesome.
I think the only weakness Arlen has is any distance under 100 miles right now. I think he's probably going to be the one to admit that after JFK in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But no, Arlen's run at 100 miles recently has been unbelievable. But no, it was kind of cool to obviously be out there and share some miles with you and Arlen for my very brief stint at that race that year, because I did not finish, and got to make sure to remind everyone of that one going into my 100 here, so I got the added motivation for myself. But no, we got a couple more chat questions in the thing. Let's go to Andy. He said if he ever wants to run both hills and flats, then go back to Ohio for the Tuscaloosa 100 next year. Great half single track and half towpath, 25-mile loops. We need more Virginia Happy Trails running club members there. So that could be another good one for you as well. We had their race directors on RRLive number, insert the number there, and you can go back and find that one. But Carl, yeah, there we go. Carl Bliggins says, always love Paul's consistent repping of the Virginia Happy Trails Running Club, the People's Champ. I want to know, like, what does that community mean to you? Obviously, so many local communities have like their niche and like, their club, their community that kind of they band together, they do some awesome things together. What has that club meant to you?
Man, I gotta say, there's I'm gonna get a little philosophical for a moment, so excuse me, but like American society, we have our issues, and I'm not going to get political, but it's like one of our key issues is we can't find ways to build community that doesn't have to do with like politics and other bullshit. And like Virginia Happy Trails for me is my happy place. It's like where people are coming together over the sport. You're not allowed to bring tears, whining, or bullshit, and like everyone is bringing their best selves to that community. People volunteer at races, people volunteer to do trail maintenance. People don't whine or complain, right? It's like, sometimes you have a bad race and people are honest about it. And it's just like the lack of BS and the lack of, sort of like, what is the word? Ego, right? I mean, people are just there to share miles together. And I am too. Like, it doesn't matter that because again, it would be like, sometimes I'm at the front of the pack, because guess what? Sometimes I'm not. It doesn't matter, right? It's all about, we're in this together, dudes and dudettes. Like, we're doing this together. And you don't find those spaces in American society as much as you used to. Like, I'm not a churchgoer. Some people have their church. I don't have time for clubs because I have kids. So I'm not like bowling on the weekends, but I do run. And so running is my thing. It's my third space. And the Virginia Happy Trails, man, it's like a welcoming place, and there's no BS, there's no ego. I mean, people give you respect for the number of hours you put volunteering. How many aid stations have you helped out at? And of course, there's the respect of like, oh man, that dude has run, I don't know, 30 ultras or 30 hundreds, right? Like, so like, right, there's respect where respect should be given, which is like the things you've earned, not the things you say you do or the things you think you do. It's what you've actually earned. And I don't know if that like philosophy, I'm sure there's aspects of your own running communities that it's similar, and that's why you're attracted to it. But like, man, come to our races, because it's so much fun. You drink beers afterwards, and there's no ego and bullshit. I mean, it's like, these are the people you want to know in your life, so move to Virginia or whatever, or DC.
Yeah, you got me on the beer part afterwards. It's like my favorite thing to do post run. I even like a few beers before runs, but I mean, you never know. Never had a problem with that. Works out well for me. But I agree. I think a lot of the communities, even around here that I run with, are similar in that mindset. Like, where it's, you just show up to run, you just go talk afterwards, you hang out or whatever, and it doesn't matter what other beliefs you may have. You're just there to hang out and have, run and talk and have a good time. So I think a lot of the running communities are that way, and that's what I love about one of the things I love about the running community is, like, even at Canal, like in these big races when we're all there, there's not, like you said, there's no bullshit at those races. People are just there to help out. They want to know how you're doing. They want to see you win and succeed or whatever, and that's all that matters.
Yeah,
So I
totally.
love that kind of stuff. Um, Eric Anderson says Arlen's going to crush Javelina, which I'm excited to see him do a West Coast race finally.
John,
Javelina. I like to call it Javelina. No, I got to call it the Javelina Jundred.
Just throw the J on it. No, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, no, you have to mispronounce every word possible, like jalapenos and ches. You just can't say it right ways. It's gonna be good there. So, I think we got some final questions here in our. Do we have anything more on Mohican?
I've got one here. So you kind of talked about, a lot of people kind of come together in the community aspect. It's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people can kind of band together on the reason, because everyone has a reason why they run. And I think, you can't really just be like, oh, your reason's kind of bullshit. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, you can't just disrespect someone like that. And I think, the reason why people run is just pretty important to them. And so I want to kind of dive into that with you now, is why do you run, and kind of what is kind of took your trail running career to kind of that next level?
So yeah, man, it's funny because I should have a great answer, and I've come up with lots of reasons why I run, but I don't have an answer as to why, if that makes any sense, because there's no one reason. I mean, like, yeah, it's physical fitness and staying healthy. Like, I love that aspect of it. Maybe the biggest, I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old at home, and possibly the biggest reason for me is they see me do things that they know take a lot of work and take a lot of dedication. And, I really don't see like, if you just view your life, like, what are you going to change in your life, right? Like, ask yourself that question. If you're a parent, one of the only things you have control over is maybe you'll change your children's lives, right? And so, I mean, of course, I'm not going out to run 100 miles just to make my kids go, wow, dad ran 100 miles. But that's part of it. It is part of this, let's do something else. Not, everybody has their job, everyone has family or friends. Like, what is that other thing you're going to do? And for me, running kind of fits that category of, it gives me peace and meditation. It gives me health, and it provides motivation maybe for my kids. And I get to watch some birds along the way. So.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome answer there. Kind of diving into that, and kind of diving, from that into like specific training philosophies now. Like, do you love doing high mileage, or, are you more of like, I need to nail, like you said, one speed workout a week, but like, do you have to hit that, or like, what is your training philosophy? What do you think other people should train? Let's just open the bag of worms. And, if you were going to coach me tomorrow, I think I've got 2 weeks left. You throw one piece of advice out for me.
Totally change what you're doing. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, I mean, right. But it's all about your goals, right? So, the best question to ask is, what do you want to do? Because if what you want to do is a fast 50 or a mountainous 100 or, some sort of like speedy 50K, those are all going to be different answers. But, I guess my training philosophy is moderate mileage. It's not high, it's not triple digits just about ever. And so I go for like moderate mileage with a little bit of speed and hang on for dear life, because I just don't have the full-time job. I have 2 kids. I'm dedicated to my family and part of their lives. So I can't. Yeah, I wake up at butt crack of dawn Sundays to make this happen. So yeah, maybe my religion is a Sunday long run. I wake up early enough that I can put in 3 or 4 hours every Sunday. And I'd say I try to hit that like 48 weeks out of the year, probably. That I don't know if that makes sense, but that's probably the only real key aspect of my religion is that sometimes that'll be flat mileage if it's what I just did last weekends. But most of the time it's in the trails and on elevation.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. Consistency is probably one of the most important things for every ultra runner. The more consistent you can be year after year, obviously the better you will become over time. So that was an awesome answer there. I do want to be a little selfish here. Normally I try to, ask questions that, help out others a little bit more, like John finishing his first 100 miler this past weekend. Shout out to you, John, for doing that again. But, I want to be a little selfish here. I've got a 100 miler coming up 2 weeks. I've mentioned it a couple times now. What advice would you give to someone, 2 days before, 1 day before they go out there and attempt to do it? I've done it once or twice before at this time, but like, what advice would you give to someone just 1 minute monologue of something I can just like play back and remember before I start off on that Saturday morning.
So, I mean, if you have a plan for your nutrition and you have a plan for pacing, the 1 minute monologue is going to be a lot less than that. It's out of your control, Leslie. It's out of your control. And I don't mean that in a way that you should give in to temptations or give in to like fate. If you feel crappy, you're going to feel crappy. What I'm saying is dial in your nutrition, eat as much as you can, especially early on. Have a pacing strategy that's very conservative. So conservative pacing, eat a ton. And by the way, those things help each other out, right? So if you're running slower, especially in that first half, probably the first 2/3 is a good advice. You'll eat more. Those two things will help each other out. Then it's out of your control. Just enjoy what you can enjoy. I mean, you're going to have lows, but all the rest of that, try to enjoy it, because then it's going to go by fast. You're going to eat like crazy, which is fun. And moreover, if you went out conservative in the first 2/3, it really should be 2/3. It shouldn't be a half. Then you're going to finish well, you know? And if you feel like you went out too conservative, well, that's fine. Start sprinting at mile 75 or 85.
See, that's better advice than I had. My section, so I'm crewing for Wesley on this race, and I told him that unless he gets cut off a DNF by cutoff by time, he's not getting a ride home. So he's just got to keep moving.
Which race is it, Wesley?
Rim to River 100 in West Virginia. So I'm glad you picked West Virginia as your state to conquer next year, and I don't have to deal with you this year. So really appreciate you picking West Virginia next year.
Can I still sign up? Can I still sign up for Saturday?
Actually, yeah, you could. I think the wait list is empty right now, so we'll see you out there.
No, my wife would kill me.
This has been
beautiful down there.
Yeah, it's
Totally
definitely
worth
one
the
that
visit.
you should definitely put on your radar for next year. I'm excited to kind of see the course in a new way this year. I think that's it for this episode. Let's do our quick questions, John. Start us off.
So we've got some quick questions we always ask here at the end. That being said, couple quick notes. Drop in the chat if you got any final questions for Paul. We'll get those to him before we get out of here. And then if you like what we're doing, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. That greatly helps out us in the channel and allows us to grow and share our stuff with more and more people. So love that. So if you love what we're doing, please give us a like down there. First, let's see here. What do we want to go with for tonight? First question. What's one thing you can't leave an aid station without?
So I'm going to flip the question around. The one thing I can't enter an aid station without is antacid. I pop antacid like crazy. I do. Like one before, not every aid station, but toward the end. And then leaving, like I always carry more than I should. I'm a pack rat. I really got to stop. But I always have like 2 extra gels that I don't need. So I'm always like 2 gels. That's 200 calories I can suck down. And it's just like a safety blanket, you know? But anyway.
I feel like having 2 gels, like only 2 gels, it does not make you an extra, like a pack rat or anything like that. I feel like that's a plenty of a thing. You made it seem like you were carrying like 16 Cliff Bars and 14 gallons of water. And
well, here's the thing. I've only told you the smart thing that I do. I got a pack of potato chips. I've got a jacket. I've got a hat. I'm like, I carry beanies in the fall, not the winter. I mean, like, I'm just ridiculous.
Love it. Question from the chat says favorite post-race indulgence and favorite beer.
Favorite beer these days is like those double IPAs, man. I always go for a double IPA as an indulgence, and peanut butter chocolate ice cream of any type. I will house that.
Big fan of the ice cream. I'm gonna do it usually before the race for me, but I'll do it after the race as well. So that's the great answer there.
Go for it.
Let's do if ultra running had walk-up songs like baseball, what would yours be?
I'm going to go with Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin.
Solid
it is.
choice.
I mean, if you guys know the intro, I'm not going to sing it for you. Sorry. Just look it up if you don't know it offhand. But Led Zeppelin is the best band ever, and I will fight you over that.
Well, we'll just keep our opinions to ourselves.
Yes. That's all needs to be said.
What about your weirdest hallucination mid-race or strangest thing you might have seen someone eat at an aid station?
There was a day I was running with this guy head to head over 100 miler, and he shotgunned a beer at like mile 80, and then proceeded to take off and destroy me over the next 20 miles. And I was like, wait, I got to do that because that's causation. Apparently, that's what that led to him winning because he shotgunned a full beer. I don't know, man.
It's pretty intense.
It's awesome.
All right, so this question is newer. It's from Cam, and it's a great question. It's interesting because it gets into your psychological or how you think and stuff like that. So it says, would you rather fight 1 chicken on one day, 2 chickens on day 2, 3 chickens on day 3, and so on for 365 days, or fight 1 mountain lion after training for 365 days? If you fight the chickens, you have nothing but your hands and clothes, but if you fight the mountain lion, you get a sword and armor to fight it.
So I have 365 days to train for the mountain lion?
Yep.
Yeah, see, on this one, I go with mountain lion hands down because part of the reason I'm in this community is not just for the racing. It's like I love the training. So to have a whole year to focus on that mountain lion and just think of ways to conquer it, like I would like learn jujitsu. I would like learn how to fight with, swords. I mean, that would be awesome, right? Like, yeah, let's go for that. And I'd probably die, but I mean, die trying at least.
True. Yeah, because I think the debates we've had so far with this question is anticipation. Some people would rather just know that the chickens are coming every day versus the anticipation of a mountain lion fight in a year. So.
Now, I've been known to like take like 5 or 6 months off of racing to just train for one race. And so at least connecting it back to running, I would want that mountain lion so bad by the end of that year.
Yeah, I used to be pro mountain lion, and some of the runs I've done recently, now that the weather's changing, it's getting a little darker earlier out here in the mountains, I might be pro chicken a little bit. I haven't seen anything, haven't had really any close calls, but chicken's not gonna make me lose my mind, at 20-something miles into a long run. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll go back and forth. I'm still also a team mountain lion.
This does connect back to the hallucination part of your question earlier, though, which is that like the darker stuff is, man, your mind does wander and comes up with other things that it thinks it is. So yeah, I don't know. I'm fighting the mountain lion in pure daylight, that would be part of it too, right, John?
Yeah, daylight.
Okay. Have to be.
That would be fair. It wouldn't be fair.
I want to have a contract. Can we sign a contract? Because
paper napkin
I want
in the
all
bar. Paper napkin signatures in the bar. That's how it's gonna happen.
Otherwise, all bets are off, man.
We got one more, I think, here. If you could run with one person in the history of the world, even if they aren't a runner, and they would be able to run with you and keep your pace, who would it be, and where would you run?
Oh, and where would I run? Yeah, so I'd pick a new place. Like I haven't been. I've been to maybe running the rim to rim. I would run rim to rim with. I'm not going to pick one. I'm going to pick 3 astrophysicists and 3 quantum physicists. I don't know. I figure out who they are exactly. I mean, Stephen Hawking would be there, Einstein, Neil deGrasse Tyson for sure. And then I've got some like quantum physicists I'd get so we'd have a posse of 7 of us going rim to rim, discussing quantum physics and astrophysics. That's what we would do. That'd be awesome.
Interesting. What do you do for real life?
I'm not a physicist. I'm an economist. So I deal a lot with numbers, and I'm a health economist, and so I do a lot of research and work on healthcare policy. So, but in my spare time, I do a lot of reading and physics and other stuff. So,
winning Canal Corridor 100 isn't real life enough for you, John. You have to ask him what he does on his regular day-to-day job.
He said he has a full-time job. I mean, with that list right there, you're either like a serious science nerd or like highly involved in some sort of science. You're like, because you care about it that much to run with 6 extremely intelligent people.
6, yeah.
So,
I guess the problem with that would be they would all have their own conversation instead of explaining things to me, right?
Yeah, you would just get lost and you would get dropped by them.
Oh man, yeah, that's
mentally.
True. Mentally dropped, and then I'd have to drop them and run, I guess.
That's awesome.
Do you have any sponsors or social media that you would like to plug tonight?
Free agent.
Free agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're deserving of some sort of something.
I don't know, man. We'll see. No one's reached out.
You gotta
I'm not.
get a
I'm not saying I'd say no, but no one's reached out. That's
get
cool.
a Tums sponsor, first ever ultra
What's
running.
that?
Get a sponsorship from
Oh,
Tums or
Tums.
something. That would be a first.
That's great. I love that.
It's
Yeah.
before every aid station, you said.
I mean, yeah, I think it would help my household budget if it was beer or ice cream.
Yeah.
But the Tums are cheap, but I'll take what I can get. Hoka too. My wife calls me Imelda Marcos because of the number of shoes I have. So if Hoka's out there, yeah.
Yeah, sign this man.
Yeah, deserving. I think that's all we got for tonight. I want to thank everyone in the chat for being in here and being active and asking all the great questions. Thanks, Paul, for being on. Congrats on your win. Awesome performance. I can't wait to see you next year at Rim to River, obviously. We'll probably come back just to witness that. And Wesley will definitely not snub you in that prediction video. But other than that, I think this was a wonderful conversation, and it was great to hear your perspective and everything like that. So it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. You guys are doing a great service to the community, and you're fun to hang out with. So thanks, guys.
Awesome.
And congrats, John, on your finish, man.
Thanks.
Boom.
Appreciate it. Got the first one done. Gonna focus on 50s for a while now. But we'll see everyone next week for the next Ridge Runners Live. Bye, everybody.